crash landing on an unknown world. Tom Miller gritted his teeth as alarms blared inside his cockpit. His cargo ship, the Orion's Edge, rattled violently, lights flashing red as the control panel sparked in protest. Come on, stay with me," Tom muttered, frantically flipping switches in a desperate attempt to regain control. It was useless. His ship was going down. Through the cracked windshield, he could see an alien world sprawling beneath him, an emerald green landscape, rivers glowing faintly like veins of bioluminescent light. A large city shimmered in the distance, bathed in golden hues, but he was descending too fast to admire the scenery. With a final burst of adrenaline, Tom yanked the emergency controls. The thrusters coughed out one last surge of power, slowing his descent just enough to prevent an explosive impact. Instead, the Orion's Edge crashed through the thick foliage of a jungle, tearing through vines and branches before skidding into the clearing with a thunderous crash. Then, silence. Tom coughed, dazed. Blood trickled down his forehead from where his head had slammed into the control panel. His limbs ached, but nothing felt broken. The ship, however, was another story. Smoke curled from the wreckage, and the emergency lights flickered weakly. "Well, that's just fantastic," he muttered. He unstrapped himself and reached for his emergency pack. First things first, assess the damage, secure supplies, and a sudden hum filled the air. Tom froze. It wasn't the ship. This sound came from outside. The thick jungle beyond the wreckage rustled, shadows moving between the alien foliage. A strange, melodic language echoed in the distance, growing closer. Tom's gut tightened. He was not alone. Slowly, he reached for his sidearm, a compact pulse pistol with enough charge for a few shots. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. Then they emerged. Tall, graceful figures stepped into the clearing, their green-tinted skin glistening under the soft light of the planet's twin moons. They were humanoid, but strikingly different. Their elongated limbs moved with effortless elegance, their eyes luminous and sharp. They wore flowing robes adorned with golden filigree, and intricate headdresses crowned their heads like woven branches. Most shocking of all, they were all women. Tom took an instinctive step back, raising his hands cautiously. Hey there. I come in peace." One of the women, standing at the forefront, tilted her head, observing him. She was taller than the others, her gown adorned with shimmering silver, marking her as someone important. "Interesting," she murmured in a heavily accented but understandable English. "He speaks." Before Tom could respond, another figure stepped forward. She was different. Where the others held themselves with calculated poise, this one radiated an air of curiosity, of something dangerous and unpredictable. Her silver-white hair cascaded down her back, and her deep emerald eyes locked onto him with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. "You are the one I have chosen," she said, her voice smooth yet commanding. Tom blinked. What?" The others bowed their heads slightly as she stepped closer, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "I am Rose Morning Light, daughter of High Chieftain Crystal Mountain." She extended a hand, palm facing up in an unfamiliar gesture. "And you, human, are now my mate." Silence. Tom stared. His brain scrambled for any logical explanation for what he had just heard. "I'm sorry. Did you just say, mate?" he asked, his voice rising slightly. Rose smiled, tilting her head as if he were an amusing puzzle. "Yes, it is the law of our people. The first outsider to arrive during the choosing cycle must become the mate of the noble who claims them. I have chosen you." Tom exhaled sharply, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Okay. No offense, but I don't think that's gonna work for me." The surrounding women gasped. A few took a step forward, hands resting on the hilts of elegant but deadly-looking weapons. The High Chieftain, who had been silent until now, frowned deeply. "Human," she said, her voice carrying authority. "To refuse a noble's claim is to invoke the highest punishment." Tom's stomach twisted. Which is? Rose smiled sweetly. Death. His pulse spiked. Tom took a slow step back, raising his hands. Okay, hold on a second. This is all happening really fast. Maybe we can talk about this. The High Chieftain turned to her daughter. Are you certain of your choice, Rose Morninglight? Rose's eyes never left Tom. She studied him like a rare artifact, something precious and unpredictable. Yes, she said, nodding once. I choose him. The chieftain sighed, waving a hand. Then it is decided. The human will be given 7 planetary cycles to prove his worth. If he fails or refuses, he shall be executed. Tom's heart pounded. Wait, what? What does proving my worth even mean? Rose smiled. You'll find out soon enough. As 2 of the green-skinned warriors grabbed his arms, Tom officially regretted waking up this morning. The trial of worth. Tom's feet dragged against the smooth stone floor of the palace corridor as he was led deeper into the heart of the alien city. The 2 warriors gripping his arms didn't loosen their hold, their expressions unreadable. His mind raced. A trial of worth. 7 planetary cycles to prove himself. And if he failed, execution. Fantastic, he muttered under his breath. The architecture around him was breathtaking. The walls pulsed faintly, as if alive, with intricate golden patterns that shifted in response to their presence. The palace itself seemed to be carved from a single, seamless material that glowed softly under the twin moons outside. Strange, floating orbs of light hovered along the corridors, illuminating the path forward. The deeper they went, the clearer it became. This was no primitive civilization. The people of this world possessed a level of technology that seamlessly blended with nature, creating a realm that felt both ancient and far beyond human understanding. Finally, they arrived at a grand chamber. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, forming a dome of translucent crystal that reflected the stars above. At the center of the room, Rose Morninglight stood waiting, her arms crossed, a bemused smile playing at her lips. Tom was shoved forward. He barely caught himself before stumbling. You could be a little gentler, you know, he muttered, straightening his jacket. The 2 warriors didn't respond. Instead, they stepped back, standing at attention. Rose studied him for a long moment. Then she turned to an ornate throne at the far end of the chamber, where her mother, High Chieftain Crystal Mountain, sat in regal silence. The chieftain's piercing gaze locked onto Tom, her fingers tapping against the armrest of her seat. You are now within the sanctuary of choosing, she declared. Here, the trial of worth shall commence. Tom swallowed hard. Okay, and what exactly does this trial involve? Rose's smile widened. It is quite simple. You must complete 3 tasks. If you succeed, you will be granted full status as my mate. If you fail, the High Chieftain finished for her. You die. Tom exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Right. Of course. Because why would aliens ever make things easy? The chieftain ignored him. Your first trial begins now. With a wave of her hand, the ground beneath Tom shifted. The smooth stone retracted, revealing a deep pit filled with dark, shimmering liquid. At first, he thought it was water, until it moved. A beast emerged. Slick, serpentine, and covered in bioluminescent markings, the creature slithered forward, its 4 glowing eyes locking onto Tom. Its mouth opened in a silent snarl, revealing rows of serrated teeth. Tom's stomach twisted. Oh, come on. Rose leaned forward, intrigued. You must retrieve the heartstone from the creature's lair beneath the pit. She gestured to the glowing amulet nestled between the creature's coiled body. You cannot use weapons, only your wits. Tom turned his head slowly. You're joking, right? Rose smirked. We do not joke in matters of the trial. The beast let out a guttural hiss, sinking back into the shifting liquid. The implication was clear. Tom would have to go down there. He exhaled, shaking his head. All right, no problem. I'll just swim with the alien death snake, and grab the magic rock. Sounds great. Before he could hesitate any longer, the floor beneath him gave way. Tom barely had time to take a breath before plunging into the abyss. The depths below. The liquid wasn't water. It was thicker, more resistant, like moving through heavy syrup. It clung to his skin, making every movement an effort. Through the dim glow of the bioluminescent surroundings, he saw the creature. It was bigger than he thought, at least 20 feet long, its serpentine form coiling around a bed of strange, glowing coral. At its center, resting on a natural pedestal, was the Heartstone, a pulsating crystal that seemed to beat like a living heart. Tom gritted his teeth. The beast hadn't noticed him yet. Slowly, he maneuvered downward, careful not to make sudden movements. Every inch forward felt like moving through quicksand, his lungs already burning from holding his breath. Closer. He reached out. A sudden ripple in the liquid. The beast's 4 eyes snapped open. Tom's heart nearly stopped. The creature lunged. Tom twisted his body at the last second, narrowly avoiding the razor-sharp teeth. His hand shot forward, grabbing the Heartstone just as the beast's massive tail lashed out, sending him tumbling through the liquid. Panic surge. His chest ached for air. He kicked hard, rising toward the surface as the creature circled back, preparing for another attack. The edge of the pit, so close. Just as the beast lunged again, Tom broke through the surface, gasping for breath. Strong hands grabbed him, yanking him from the pit. Tom collapsed onto the stone floor, coughing violently. His entire body ached, but the Heartstone was clutched tightly in his fist. Rose stepped forward, eyes gleaming with amusement. Impressive. Tom groaned. Yeah, I'm a real hero. What's next? Wrestling a space bear. The High Chieftain stood. You have passed the first trial. The second begins at dawn. Tom barely had the energy to curse. Lying on the cold floor, soaked in alien liquid, he realized something with absolute certainty. This was going to be the worst week of his life. The trial of cunning Tom had barely gotten a moment's rest before he was summoned at dawn for the second trial. His entire body ached from the previous night's near-death experience with the abyssal serpent, but the warriors escorting him didn't seem to care. They led him into a vast courtyard, where Rose Morning Light stood waiting, her expression unreadable. The High Chieftain watched from a towering balcony above, her presence a silent reminder that failure was not an option. Tom rubbed his temples. All right, what's next? A death race. A fight to the death. Maybe an alien math test. Rose's lips twitched. The second trial is one of cunning. You will face the Hall of Illusions. Tom frowned. That doesn't sound too bad. The chieftain raised a hand. The courtyard shifted. The solid ground beneath Tom's feet seemed to dissolve into a swirling mist, revealing a labyrinth of floating stone platforms, suspended in an endless void. Each platform led in different directions, creating a dizzying maze of impossible pathways. Tom staggered, his stomach lurching as gravity itself seemed to warp. The walls of the labyrinth shimmered, reflecting multiple versions of himself, some slightly distorted, others staring back at him with malicious smiles. This place is cursed, he muttered. Rose stepped beside him, though she did not enter the maze. Some say it was built by the Ancient Ones, who walked between worlds. Others say it is a test of the mind, designed to break those who are not worthy. Tom exhaled. Great. And what's my objective? The key of seeing lies at the labyrinth's center, Rose explained. But beware, the maze does not obey the rules of reality. What you see may not be real. What you hear may lie to you. And if you make the wrong choice... The chieftain's voice echoed through the courtyard. You will be lost forever. Tom swallowed hard. No pressure, then. Without another word, the ground beneath him gave way, and he tumbled into the labyrinth below. The Hall of Illusions. Tom landed on a floating platform with a rough thud, rolling to break his fall. When he stood, he was alone. The walls shimmered with strange reflections, his own image staring back at him. Except, not quite right. Some versions of himself were older, others younger. One reflection grinned at him with too many teeth. Tom shuddered. Yeah, I hate this. He took a step forward, only for the platform beneath his foot to vanish. He barely managed to yank himself back before plummeting into the abyss. Okay, he muttered. Watch where I step. The maze was disorienting. Some pathways led in circles. Others disappeared entirely when he tried to cross. The air was thick, heavy with whispers, some familiar, some completely alien. And then he heard her voice. Tom. His breath caught. He knew that voice. It was Anna's. His heart clenched painfully. Anna, his wife, or at least she had been, before the accident that took her from him. He whirled around. And there she was. Anna stood on a distant platform, wearing the same soft smile she always had. Her dark hair fell in loose waves over her shoulders, her eyes full of warmth. She reached a hand toward him. Tom, she said softly, come to me. His chest tightened. It had to be a trick. He knew it was a trick. But for a moment, just a moment, he wanted to believe. He took a hesitant step forward, and the platform beneath him shifted. Something else was there. A shadowy version of himself stood just behind Anna, its mouth twisted into a cruel smirk. Its fingers twitched, and suddenly, Anna's face warped, melting into something monstrous. Tom leaped back just in time as the platform crumbled. The illusion was gone. A deep voice rumbled through the maze. You see the truth. Tom exhaled, his hands trembling. That was messed up. A new path opened before him, leading toward the center of the labyrinth. He moved forward cautiously, testing each step. The air grew colder, the whispers louder. The reflections on the walls no longer mimicked his movements. Instead, they moved independently, watching him with hungry eyes. At last, he reached the center. A pedestal stood in the middle of a vast, glowing circle. Upon it lay a golden key, shimmering like stardust. The key of seeing. Tom took a deep breath. Okay, let's just grab it and... A hand shot from the shadows, wrapping around his wrist. Tom yelled, stumbling back as his own reflection stepped from the wall, identical in every way, except for the malice in its eyes. You are not worthy, the doppelganger hissed. Tom gritted his teeth. Oh, bite me. The reflection lunged. Tom barely dodged, grabbing a loose fragment of stone from the platform. When his double attacked again, he swung. The stone connected with a sickening crack, sending the copy reeling. No hesitation. Tom dived for the key, fingers closing around the golden metal. The maze shuddered. The illusion shattered. Tom hit the ground hard. The air knocked from his lungs. When he looked up, he was no longer in the labyrinth. He was back in the courtyard. Rose stood before him, arms crossed, her gaze assessing. The High Chieftain stepped forward, eyes narrowing. You have retrieved the key of seeing. Tom forced himself to his feet. Yeah, he muttered, and I'd really love a drink right about now. Rose smirked. 2 trials down. 1 remains. Tom sighed. Oh, good, because I was starting to enjoy this nightmare. The chieftain's voice rang out once more. The final trial will begin at dusk. Tom had a sinking feeling the worst was yet to come.